Alright, and welcome to the next video. This one is going to be our class. Actually, I haven't changed it since I added the other two. This one is going to be about our classes. So, within the system, we have 20 classes. The classes are, well, they're all together in one section, but I've split them up in certain ways to where there are casters, marshals, and specialists. There are 8 casters, 8 marshals, and 4 specialists. We'll go through them all, but we'll go with our marshals first. So in terms of the marshals, we have brawler, cowboy, fighter, gunslinger, hunter, martyr, wrathful, and zealot. Those are the 8 martial classes. When it comes to casters, we have druid, eldritch, gambler, manifest, minstrel, priest, weird, wizard. Which will then leave us our 8 casters, and then they'll leave us with the 4 specialists. The 4 specialists in the system are engineer, plague doctor, scion, and rogue. So we're gonna not really go too much into all of them, and there's a lot to go through because they're all full classes. Every single one has 3 subclasses, but we're kind of just going to look at this first page for each class. That's what we're going to do here. So let's go ahead and go straight to Brawler. So, Brawler, here's our Brawler page. They use a D10 for their hit dice, proficient in no armor, dexterous melee weapons and knuckles. Saving throws are good at is Pride, Hope, and Gluttony, Temperance. And choose 4, and there's their skills. Starting equipment being a quarterstaff, knuckles, darts, and a dagger. The brawler drives that they have are bone and glory, so choose 1 from each of those drives. And then there's the recommended backgrounds. So brawlers use brawler dice. And so the brawlers are going to be kind of your unarmed fighters. This is essentially the monk fill-in for this system. But they're, instead of being all about key and focus, they're all about beating the crap out of people with nothing but their hands. Next we get the cowboy, which does not have any art yet. That is also being worked on. Cowboy's gonna be pretty classical cowboy for you. Using D10 hit dice, light and medium armor, grappler weapons, revolvers, and lassos. For their weapons, wrath, justice, pride, hope for their saves. There's their skills. They start with a whip, revolver, 20 bullets, 4 lassos, dagger, any 3 pieces of starting armor. They get swift and special for their drives. There's their backgrounds. Now, cowboys were entirely designed around the fact that they are the class, they're the martial class that will be using whips to fight with instead of other weapons. Whips and lassos and chain whips. And they have revolvers, so as a just in case, but they also will be able to get with familiar steed. They can literally set a horse as their familiar. Even though they don't have spells, they will get the equivalent to... They will get Mage's Familiar, and can only use that on a horse. Next is the Druid. This is one of our casters, also doesn't have art yet. The Druid is a D8, hit dice, light armor, dexterous melee, quarterstaff clubs, envy, faith, sloth, prudence for your saves, quarterstaff, crossbow, 20 volts, 3 pieces of starting armor, arcane focus. Druid's drives are mental and nature. Actually, this is, I think, changed now. But, things will change. So, Druids are still pretty typical to your Druids in D&D. Your wild shape stuff is entirely dependent upon your subclass. Instead of being able to wild shape and use a charge to do something else depending on your subclass, it is fully based on your subclass here. Where you can turn into animals. You can turn into like a lycanthrope of some animals, or you have astral forms. But it's kind of all that. They're, classical druids. Next we have the eldritch, which this is the warlock fill-in. They have D8, light armor, dagger, quarterstaff, whip, envy, faith, sloth, prudence, skills. Their drives are eldritch and weird. There's their backgrounds. And this is pretty much the warlock fill-in. Now, there is no spell slots. Every single spell costs stamina. So they're honestly probably a little better, but also maybe a little worse in some cases. Um, but yeah, this is essentially your warlock, but with a little bit more dark influence, especially later on with blood casting and shadow vessel. Next is the engineer, the first specialist. Engineers are D8, light and medium armor and shields, strength melee weapons and ranged weapons, sloth, prudence, gluttony, temperance. Starting equipment: hook sword, deadeye rifle, 20 bullets, 3 pieces starting armor. They get swift and tech drives. There's their backgrounds. And for the engineers don't have extra attack. They don't have spells. They are a specialist, and this is a support specialist where they have custom built weaponry and they have gadgets that they can hand out to their allies. Next to that is the fighter, which also does not have art, but this is your classic D&D fighter. They the most extra attacks. They are just the people who use all weapons, all armor, Wrath, Justice, Pride, Hope for your saves. Start with some decent stuff. Blade and Glory for your drives. But every single fighter has Tactics, which is essentially your Battlemaster fighter. And they also get a thing called Exponential Attacks, where they have chances where they can just keep going and hit a massive combo, but spend stamina to do so. But it's a chance, it's not up to them, it's random. All that stuff. Fun stuff. Next is the Gambler, which is another spellcaster. They're D6, light armor, dexterous melee weapons, grappler weapons, revolvers, greed, charity, lust, fortitude, chaos, and mental are their drives. And then they're spellcaster with different bets and enchant, which essentially they can assist their allies who use weapons to have them deal more damage with their weapons. Next is the Gunslinger, which is another martial. They're D8, light and medium armor, dexterous ranged weapons, daggers, hand axe, rapiers. Pride, Hope, Envy, Faith for the saves. Bone and Tech for the drives. This is just, you can use guns. You are the gun. Actually, a lot of people can use guns, but you are the gun person, which your guns will do more damage. You're more efficient with your guns. You can do a lot more stuff. Critting helps you out a whole bunch. And you'll have between subclasses for getting revenge for taking damage or being a sniper, all that fun stuff. Next is the Hunter, which this is the Ranger fill-in. So you have efficiency, your D8, light armor, medium armor, shields, revolvers, short bows, crossbows, heavy crossbows, long swords, short swords. Pride, Hope, Greed, Charity, Nature, and Virtue are your drives. And you are very... I'm targeting... It's instead of being like certain creatures you target that you might not ever run to, it's... Oh, look, that person. I am now targeting and hunting that person. A little bit more Craven the Hunter type of thing. Instead of just, specific creatures or animals, that is my target, and that is who we're going after. Next is the Manifest. Now, the Manifest is a somewhat psychic spellcaster, more leaning into spellcasting than the psychics. D6, light armor, dagger, dexterous melee weapons, revolvers, gluttony, temperance, lust, fortitude, 2 daggers, revolver, 10 bullets, all that good stuff. Drives are arcane and eldritch. And yeah, they are your mostly spellcasters, a little bit of psychic influence over their bodies and minds. Then we have the Martyr, which this is pretty much a blood hunter, but instead of expending as much stamina as everyone else is doing, they're more going to expend their own hit points to do stuff, where they can do cool fiery things with their weapons, or they can try to control people's blood using their own blood. It's a pretty cool whole thing. They have light armor, shields, all melee weapons, dual wield weapons, Pride, Hope, Gluttony, Temperance. Drives are blood and sacrifice. Yeah, cool stuff there. Onto the Minstrel. This is the Bard fill-in, but instead of just being like a performer, Minstrels are musicians fully. All they're spellcasters, but with a lot of music-based features and having songs playing during combat. They're D8. There's their proficiencies. Then we have their drives are Charm and Lore. After this, we got one of the new ones that was added with the Plague Doctor. The Plague Doctor is another specialist. Uses a D8, light armor, medium armor, shields, dagger, knuckles, whips, quarterstaffs, bloody temperance, sloth, prudence. Medicine and eldritch are their drives. So a Plague Doctor does not have spellcasting and does not have extra attack. However, its whole thing, they have a bunch of risk dice, and their whole thing is being a specialist healer. They can heal without the use of magic. Magical healing can take people's hit dice to do for most magical healing. Risk dice do not, but if you roll a maximum on the risk dice, then you lose that dice. So, the best healing you can give someone can hurt you, because you would then lose that chance to heal people later. This is, still somewhat new and subject to change. Then we have the Priest, which is your spellcasting healer for D8, light armored shield, strength melee weapons, greed, charity, envy, faith, divine and virtue for your drives. You are very similar to cleric. There's your cleric fill-in. They have all the spellcasting and holy-based abilities and divine-based abilities. Next up is the Scion, another specialist. This is the very, very psychic-heavy class. They don't have any spellcasting, and they don't have extra attack, but they do have a lot of different psychic-based abilities, but then have to also watch a meter. If it goes up to 100%, then they will heavily injure themselves. So they have to watch that and keep track of that whole resource instead of much other stuff during combat. But they do a lot of different fun psychic abilities. So there's the Scion. Next is the Rogue. That got moved down a whole layer. You guys need to watch me fix things. Why did it do that? I don't know why it's doing that. I'll fix that later. I don't know why things do things. Sometimes this kind of stuff just kind of happens. Did that fix it? No, not yet. I don't know. I'll fix it later. So we have the Rogue, which is, very similar to Rogue. Sneak attack works a little differently, where you have a max amount of dice, and it's less, but the sneak attack dice itself gets bigger. But yeah, then you'll go to this stuff. D8, light armor, dexterous weapons, crossbows, heavy crossbows, revolvers, blood and swift for your drives. Then we're going to go down to the weird, which this is essentially, why is everything down? I'm going to check why Scion is doing this. There we go, that should have fixed it. That was weird. Anyway, speaking of weird, so here we have the weird. So this is essentially the sorcerer fill-in for us. So we were D6, light armor, daggers, quarterstaffs, short swords, revolvers, whips, gladly temperance, envy, faith. You have chaos and weird for your drives. You are a full-on spellcaster that can manipulate your spells to do some weird stuff. Weirds have had something happen to them during their lives that have given them magic. Then we have the wizard, which is your very classical wizard. They've studied magic to learn everything, have a lot of this stuff here. They are D6, no armor, daggers, quarterstaffs, crossbow, revolvers, sloth, prudence, pride, hope for your saves, arcane and lore for your drives. Then we have the wrathful. This is the barbarian, also does not have art. With the wrathful, your D12 for your hit dice. You got shields for your armor, strength weapons, all melee weapons. Your drives are blade and blood. This is just straight up the barbarian, pretty much. Little different, but not much different. And finally, we have the zealot, which is the paladin fill-in. Zealot uses a D10, medium heavy armor, shields, strength melee weapons, multi-use weapons, Longsword, shield, chain whip, 3 starting armor for starting stuff. You got charm and divine. Now this is pretty much just your paladins who have divine duties to do. And then we have multi-classing. Multi-classing is, to my knowledge, still very similar to D&D, except, with special stuff that this system has. I'll have to fill in for that. But that is going to be it for this. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to join in on next time.